The year that St. Oliver Plunkett was canonized, 1975, was also a Jubilee year of hope. What a wonderful coincidence. It was the first Holy Year called following the Second Vatican Council. And Pope Paul VI chose the theme Reconciliation and Renewal in Hope. So similar to this year's theme chosen by Pope Francis, Pilgrims of Hope. Like his predecessor, Pope John the 23rd, who wrote the powerful encyclical Peace on Earth, Pope Paul emphasized that the Church is a servant and partner in building peace. In October 1965, he became the first ever Pope to travel to America, and his aim was to make a strong appeal at the United Nations in New York for world peace and reconciliation. Remember, this was only 20 years since the end of the Second World War, and the Pope's words have gone down in history. Never again war, he said. Never again war. It is peace, peace that has to guide the destiny of the nations. So on this day, 50 years ago, when he canonized St. Oliver Plunkett, Pope Paul VI offered Oliver to the world as a model of peace and reconciliation. You see, as soon as Oliver had come to Ireland as Archbishop in 1670, he very quickly got a reputation for being a mediator and a peacemaker. Wherever he went, he was determined to settle disputes and divisions, and he tried to bring order and harmony everywhere. He built very positive relationships with the Protestant Archbishop and clergy, and one of his major achievements was to broker a peace agreement between the notorious Rapparees and the authorities of his time. But within 4 years, the political tide was turning against the practice of Catholicism. This didn't stop Archbishop Oliver. Despite growing opposition and threats to his health and his life, he remained completely committed to his episcopal ministry. By 1678, he was a fugitive, with so many people hunting for him that he was certain he would be captured. In one of his letters at that time, he wrote, "Whatever the danger, I will stay with my flock. I will not abandon them." Eventually, however, Oliver was arrested and he was put in prison on account of malicious charges against him. He was unjustly condemned to death, and after being dragged through the crowded streets of London, Oliver was publicly executed in a gruesome manner at Tyburn Cross. But even at the gallows, he never lost his hope in the risen Lord. Just like St. Paul wrote to Timothy in today's second reading, "They can chain me like a criminal, but they cannot chain up God's news." Records show that Oliver died asking forgiveness for his own faults and publicly forgiving all those who had plotted to take away his life. No wonder then, at Oliver's canonization in 1975, Pope Paul VI described him as a man of pardon and peace, who chose to die rather than betray the faith of his people. St. Oliver, he added, was an advocate of justice, a friend of the oppressed. He wouldn't compromise with truth or condone violence. He would never substitute another gospel for the gospel of peace. What a model of reconciliation, the Pope said. What a sure guide for our day. Well, here we are, 50 years later, and we need St. Oliver Plunkett more than ever to inspire us in these troubled times of war and violence, when opinions are becoming more and more polarized, and the world seems to prefer putting up walls and barriers to building bridges of trust and peace. For Christians, peacemaking and reconciliation begins in the heart, in recognizing our own prejudices and faults, in accepting our own personal need for conversion before insisting that others should change their ways. Or as Pope Leo put it yesterday in a social media post, peace is unarmed and disarming. It is not deterrence, but fraternity. It is not an ultimatum, but dialogue. Peace won't come as a result of victories over the enemy, but as the fruit of sowing justice and courageous forgiveness, just like Oliver. I'm praying these days through the intercession of St. Oliver Plunkett for the success of the fragile peace agreement in the Middle East, that the hostages can be released back to their families, that the people of Gaza can return to their towns and villages to begin the long process of rebuilding their homes and livelihoods, and that a flood of humanitarian aid and international effort can be allowed to pour into the shell of Gaza to renew hope and dispel despair. Father Romanelli, who contacted us, do you remember, back in July? He's at the Holy Family Catholic Parish in Gaza, and he has asked the world this weekend to pray in thanksgiving and hope for a lasting peace. And today I'm also asking St. Oliver Plunkett to bring increased harmony and peace to Ireland. We still have much to do to address the painful legacy of our conflict. The unfinished work of our peace is to build meaningful reconciliation in our communities, and that's a long and difficult journey. But in St. Oliver's name, we can't allow ourselves to be robbed of hope. I like to think that St. Oliver has always been blessing our peace efforts. The late Cardinal O'Feith used to recall that the Irish War of Independence ended on the Feast of Blessed Oliver in 1921. And it's also true that after the Good Friday Agreement, the first meeting of the Northern Ireland Assembly took place on St. Oliver's Feast, the 1st of July, 1998. And in 1979, you remember when Pope John Paul II came to Ireland, he wanted to visit and pray at the relics of St. Oliver in Drogheda. And afterwards, he was inspired to make a really powerful appeal for an end to violence in Ireland. And he recalled that just a few years earlier, as Archbishop of Krakow, he was in Rome and attended the Canonisation of St. Oliver on the 12th of October, 1975. Today's gospel reading, my friends, is all about witness and gratitude to God. We've so much to be grateful to God for in the life and courageous witness of St. Oliver Plunkett. We've every reason to trust and pray through the intercession of St. Oliver that we can be a church that is alive in hope, courageous in faith, and steadfast in its commitment to peace and reconciliation. In that way, we can truly mark a jubilee of hope and help bring our world closer to fulfilling the wish of Pope St. Paul VI. Never again war. Never again war.